2025 70.3 Boise, taking place July 26th. This is classified as a reservoir swim. This is a hilly-ish bike here. We have a flat run. The big things that you got to worry about on this course are the air temperatures, where the high air temperature projected to be around the 90-degree mark out there. Low is in the 59, 60-degree area, and no average water temperature for you there. This is typically what you're going to get out here on race day, that reservoir swim kicking off right here. Nice cool water. Again, kind of a difficult bike course that we are going to talk about in a second here. And then our run, it's going to be problematic for sure, especially if it is hotter. Has the potential to have a great day for everybody out on course, but you have a couple of pitfalls that you need to be aware of. First things first, we do have the swim. And before we get too deep into this, we do have a dual transition area, very similar to St. George out here. So this is T1 located right here. So on the days leading up to that, make sure you are aware there are two different transitions, T1 and T2, in two different spots. That's going to create a whole kind of headache on race day when you're dropping all your stuff off, making sure you're organized, all that fun stuff. So make sure you plan accordingly. All right. Our swim is taking place. It is a clockwise swim this time, so right-handed breathers rejoice. You are going to be kicking off right out of the gates here. The biggest thing you need to worry about is the water temperature. It's probably going to be a shock to you if you're not used to swimming in cold water. So just be aware that that is coming. Make sure you prepare for that. Make sure you ready yourself for it. If you do, chances are this first stretch is going to run very smooth, or a little smoother than usual. If you are not, you're going to have athletes that are not used to it. They're going to hop in. The first couple strokes are going to be a little rough. If you are one of those athletes, the first on the way out here, you're going to have a couple of spots where people are going to start to hyperventilate a little bit and start to freak out a little bit. So make sure you do take advantage of that. If you are not, if you are hyperventilating, things like that, just pop over to the side and just kind of float for a little bit. This is most likely going to be wetsuit legal, so definitely advise you to get a wetsuit leading up to this race. Also, keep in mind that you can hang on to the kayaks and things like that if you do need to. You just can't use them to propel yourself forward in the event of that. So take your time. It will pass, and just kind of regain yourself, and things will go from there. If you are in a steady group, a comfortable group, this first stretch is going to be it's going to be a little more compact than usual, or your group is just going to splinter. There's going to be no in between out here. So make sure you're ready to go. And if you do have a group that is splintering, you are on the front pointy end of that, so you can just follow those feet out here. Going off over here, you do have the potential to swim directly into the sun, so watch out for that. Make sure that you are aware of where the sighting buoys are, and most importantly, where the turn buoys are. It's going to be very common for athletes to zigzag on this course, especially right out through here. When you do make this turn out here, most people are going to be breathing to the right anyways. So that's going to take out the possibility of sun if it is a sunny day there. This section right here is probably going to be the most difficult out here. Athletes are still going to be reeling from the cold water start, where they didn't go as hard as they wanted, or they went too hard. So either way, you're going to be in one of those camps there, and you're going to have to deal with that appropriately. And if you ignore that, then this stretch right here is going to be very, very tough for you. If it was me, in my mind and my pacing out here, I would set a good little clip out here, find myself a group out here. I would swim my pace directly out here. And then when I'm over here, I would hold off, and I would actually not put a huge stamp on the course. If I do need to jump up a couple of places, I'm doing it in the first half over here. And if I find that I'm expending just way too much energy, I'm kind of just sitting in and just slotting in for the remainder of the swim out here. And believe it or not, that is our swim course done and dusted. Our bike course. Bike course carries a couple of unique challenges out here. This is about 1,800 feet of elevation gain. I would have to concur. Also, there have been a couple of posts about 1,600 feet of elevation gain in some of the groups and forums and chats and all that fun stuff. So this is our bike course right here. If we look at our map out here, and I'll do some quick, nimble drawing for you. This is our swim right here. We are going to zigzag our way out, and our bike area is going to be right through here in this. So when we do talk about this map, just keep an eye out on this area. You are going to finish right up through here for T2. So just keep an eye on this general area out here when we are talking about this. But before we jump around to different days, you could see that we are you do have some high areas, you do have some low areas out here, so that creates a nice little wind channel out here. When that happens, right, we have our days. This is getting recorded on June the 11th out here. We're going to go to race time as if it was simulating exactly what we need. If that is the case, let's get rid of this advertisement here. If that is the case out here, we have a nice channel that's blowing through here, right? And that's going to be pretty consistent throughout the days as we bounce around. You can see that the wind does elevate as we get out here, and more on that in a second here, because that's going to be the kind of the thing that we are simulating out here. And this is the last day out here. If we go back to the 13th over here, which is typically what you're going to get on race day, you can see that that channel does move slightly, but it kind of juts up against the mountains right here, the hills right here. So you do have an accelerated wind channel through here. So what that means for you is a couple different things, right? Going back to our course, right? We're starting out over here, and we're going to be going away from that out here. So you're going to be going directly into the wind. So it's likely going to be a little bit more challenging than you want. You're probably going to start off with lighter winds anyways, and if you do, if you were keeping track of everything, as we go down in this scenario over here, this is typically 13, 17 mile an hour winds. That's going to be what you're going to have as you get out here, right? And then once you get closer, or depending on where you are, if you get further away from the hills out here, wind accelerates. As you get closer, it gets a little bit less, which is going to be very, very critical for the finish of our bike, all right? Now, as you progress, right, if everything is holding true, as you go down over here, you're going to have a tailwind. As you go out over here, you're going to have a tailwind. As you go back this direction, that's when the party starts. You have a nice headwind, a headwind, a headwind. You're going to hit this second turnaround spot. You're going to go around a great tailwind section out here, and then you're going to have a cross headwind coming back in this section, coming back over here, a tailwind, and then to finish a headwind. So what does that look like in real time? Well, this is what our power plan will look like, and you can see this. The elevation is written in blue out here. We'll go back to that in a minute. We're going to get rid of that. Speed, this is our speed area out here. Keep in mind, again, we do have that elevation that is about, let's call it 1,700 feet out here, right? And this is our power plan. Variability index of 0.02, so a pretty steady course out here. There's going to be a couple of spots where you do need to kind of jump up right here. The first one does come at about 3.7, 3.8 miles. Second one really comes at 13 miles. We do have another one at about 40-ish miles, and then it's pretty happy days after that, pretty steady eddies. And so once we bring back that elevation, you can see it's really no surprise that those areas that we just mentioned carry the greatest pitches out there on race day. But this is an athlete, weighs 155 pounds. They have about a 240 FTP, so you can see that as we are riding out here, this athlete's targeting 190 watts, and it jumps in kind of 10 watt areas over here as the pitches do increase out here. That's obviously going up. So in this race, you are going to have times when you are going over or around that threshold, and that's going to be totally fine. But you do not want to extend those periods over indefinitely. A unique section, if we bring back this area right here, is our speed is going to drop a little bit right here. Power is going to be a little high. That's because we're going uphill, right? As we turn around, right, we're going to be going downhill. We're also going to be going directly into the headwind. For this athlete's targeting 190 watts. But if this athlete finds that their aero ability is kind of carrying them through and their projected speed is about, let's call it, if we get a good spot here, let's say the speed is a projected 23 miles an hour at this section over here. If they find themselves really averaging 24, 25, 26 miles an hour at 170 watts, happy days for them. I wouldn't really chase excessively through these sections out here. All right, bringing that elevation away. Think back to that 190. That's just going to steadily increase as we get up back through this section out here. And then it's going to hit pretty aggressively right through here. That's no surprise. Remember, we are going to be experiencing that cross headwind again, right? And that's going to be kind of the pattern out here. Once we hit this section, we do have the We do have some blips out here. We do have some steadily increased areas of power, but you can see that this course is, let me get this speed out here, but you can hopefully see that the power it comes very steadily out here. So we're increasing, steadily decreasing, and then this section, probably one of the biggest keys is just a steady increase from about mile 25 to mile 40, right? And then we're going to play that game small again, and then we're just going to be consistent to the finish line. So aerodynamics are going to play a huge role on this course out here. Whether they're projecting about, let's call it 5 miles an hour out here, again, I would probably project more than that for sure. Another thing, if we go back to our glorious thing out here, zooming out a little bit more. Now keep in mind that we do have our race course about right there, right? So bringing that back out, we do have swirling that does happen out here. So just because the wind direction is going one way doesn't mean you're not going to get some swirling out here at all. So just because the weather's going one way doesn't really mean a whole lot at all. So just keep that in the back of your head and watch for that as you're progressing throughout the course. These are our zones that we're going to have out here. A lot of time in zone 3, no kidding. This is a 6-zone model. We're also going to have time in zone 5, about 1 minute and 4 seconds, and zone 6, about 42 seconds. On this course, we're going to carry about 20 minutes in the zone 4 area, and then we are also carrying about, let's call it 19 and a half minutes out here in zone 1 and 2. So there is a couple of areas where you are going to need to go, but don't take that as you need to go pretty much everywhere on this course, because that is not true. Let's go to our time analysis, and we're going to improve our drag a little bit. That means we're getting more aero and that kind of fun stuff. Getting a little more aero is going to net us about 27 seconds over the course of this course. If we do increase our power, we are saving 38 seconds out here, shaving a little bit of weight off of us right now, only saving us about 9-ish seconds out here. So get to race weight, and I wouldn't really stress about it a whole lot. Rolling resistance, we improve that with tire pressure, that kind of fun stuff. We're going to save ourselves about 5 seconds per each incremental increase in that. So what would I do for you to kind of increase your greater chances of success out here? What I would do is I would take our power and I would be focusing on that big time, trying to increase that FTP, trying to increase that time at race power and ability to run off of that, right? Improving about 3% is going to save you a minute 52 seconds right off of the bat. Drag, I would also be slightly improving that. If you can get to around there or here, that would be ideal for you on race day. That's going to save you 2 minutes and 20 seconds, which might not sound like a lot, but if you ask anyone the pointy end of the spectrum, if you can save 2 minutes and 20 seconds just off of your training right now, they would absolutely do it. So keep that in the back of your mind when you are prepping for this race out here. Scrolling down to our category climbs out on this course out here, we don't have a ton. We only have 6 registered climbs. Again, this athlete is targeting, and we'll get back to our power plan. Sorry about that. We are targeting about 2 hours and 35 minutes, again to 240, 245 FTP, 155 pounds. This athlete's going to take a whopping 5 minutes and 40 seconds on a monster category 4 climb. Average grade 4.5%. So if you are a little bit slower, a little bit faster, that time's going to be adjusted for you. If you are a mid to the back of the pack athlete, that time is going to balloon up a little bit more, and that's okay. This is a mile 0.2, so it's no throwaway hill at all. You're going to gain about 290 feet there. And that, believe it or not, folks, is our bike. I will also say that this course, you are very, very open to the elements out here. So whatever the wind, whatever the weather is doing, you're going to really, really feel that. As you hopefully can see, this, because you're open to the elements, things like that, aero is going to be key. 1,700 feet of elevation gain, so not super flat, but also not excessively hilly at all, especially since this is kind of steady state hills for the most part, aside from a couple of different places out here, aside from place 1, 2, and maybe 3 or 4, but really only in 2 or 3 places out here. So going back to our bike really, really fast out here, dividing this up into a couple of different sections. Again, keep this This section right here, you are going to be going into a headwind. It's going to be twisty and windy for the first couple of miles. So if you are coming out of transition in a pack, just make sure you're aware of what everyone's doing around you. Make sure you fuel up. If it was me, I would fuel up in the transition area just to kind of tick off one less thing so you can really focus in the first mile or two of our bike. And if you don't do that, just be on your P's and Q's, especially since you do go through a little downhill section here. So speed will be up for sure exiting that reservoir road. Twisting and turns will complicate things. Also, other humans, other athletes are going to further complicate things. So you're really busy in the first 2.5, 3 miles of this race. Continuing on our wayward journey out here, you're going to see elevation pitches of about 3, 7, 8, 9% here, and this is coming in the first 4.5 miles. This is kind of the worst case scenario for a lot of pacing issues. A lot of athletes that are really chomping at the bit are going to attack this hill and be flying up it, and they're going to burn a couple of matches without realizing it. After you get up this little pitch out here, I mean, you do need to uh, dump some effort into this hill, but you shouldn't be trying to win the Tour de France up this hill right here. Capping out at about 5.6 miles out here. We're going to undulate rolling down out here for about 5-ish miles out here, capping off at about mile 11, where we do have a little bit of a sharper turn, but nothing super crazy at all. What's going to further complicate this is that you're going to turn and you're going to go immediately up a hill right here. You're going to be hopefully greeted with a cross tailwind, so that should get you up to speed pretty fast out here if the weather conditions are that. Continuing on, we do have our uphill section right here. This is going to be a great spot for you to use this as a springboard effect for your race. Again, very similar to our first 5 miles out here. You don't really want to crush this. We are going to start out at about 2870 feet, and we are going to cap out at 3150 feet. Riding up this beast of a hill, we are experiencing for the majority about 4.5 to 5%, pretty much for the duration of this. After you get out here, you get a quick reprieve. Again, this is all downhill, or excuse me, this is all tailwind, cross tailwind section, and then you're going to take a left-hand turn, and you are going to steadily climb up this drag out here. About a degree, degree and a half is typically going to be where you find yourself rolling up this, and you are going to hit the turnaround, and you are going to be greeted with that tailwind, but also, or not, excuse me, you are going to be greeted with a downhill, but you're going to have a headwind coming back in this section. This is going to be where aero is important, and if it is a blustery day out here, this -1 to 1.5% downhill can play games with you. You're probably not going to be going as fast as you want to go, so read the course conditions. Just because you plan for one thing doesn't mean anything on race day. This section right here, you are going to turn. You're going to be greeted with a nice headwind. It's going to be coming off of your left shoulder. In this scenario, if this is the case, this is a dangerous hill right here. This is going to be where athletes really want to maintain that speed, and they're going to think they're going downhill. And after they get to mile 30.7, they're going to hopefully try to ride that for 32.3 mile marker. This is an area where most people will overdo. Continuing on over here, you're going to drive directly into the wind again. And again, you're less than a degree down, so this is probably going to be viewed as a false flat if the wind is blowing really aggressively. Turning around, you are going to have that tailwind, so this is going to be not negated out here. You're still going to be going uphill. You're going to be hitting some 2%ers out here. Briefly, but for the most part, you are riding in that 1.5% grade. Turning up here, this will be the most challenging part of the hill. You're going to be greeted with a great little bump in the road as you turn left out here. You're zigging and zagging, greeted with that downhill. Once you turn out here, you do have a small out and back section that you are going to need to navigate right at the airport there, and you're going to be flying, hopefully, through this uphill section out here. Turn left, you're going to head for home in the T2 area, this downward trend right here. Make sure you don't overdo it, but you do, after you hit this turn, you do have about 6 more miles to go, so you do have a fair bit of work left. Your race is not totally over once you hit this section out here, and that's our bike, believe it or not. Our run, this is typically what you're going to find out here on our run course. We have about, let's call it 180 feet of elevation gain on their map out here when we scroll up to our run course. The run course, they have about 94 feet listed, so the reality is it's probably somewhere in between. This section is on the bottom of our run course out here. If we go to the top of our run course back through here, you could see that this is typically what you're going to find. You're going to find a little more shade on the northern side up here, but it's very easy to see here. You're going to kind of have this canopy out here. So if it is a hot, humid day out here, or if it's just kind of muggy or anything like that, the air is going to be trapped in this section out here. So this has the potential on the northern side to be kind of a heat tunnel. Think back to our wind, right? And our wind is, let's get a little arrow here, our wind is going to be coming from this direction. It's not going to be as aggressive as it was in the middle of the valley, but you're still going to have some wind to deal with for sure. So this section, these sections right here, you're probably going to have more of a wind out there, but you are going to have less shade out there. So you're going to have kind of a catch-22 to deal with on race day. Do you want just the sun and the wind, or do you want the shade and kind of the trapping of the temperature? And so again, that is going to further, not complicate, but that's going to further impact your race out here. If you take this, the southern side of the river right here, if you take this as your opportunity, say, okay, I'm going to start to catch people out here, and then the northern side, I'm just going to maintain out here. That becomes a different conversation than I just need to crush this entire race, right? You can also hopefully see that there's a ton of wiggles and waggles out here. There's a ton of little it's like running on a neighborhood path. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. With that, it's all one direction out there, so you're not running on the path aside from our, our turnaround section right here. That's the only spot where you are going to be experiencing a back and a forth on a path, right? So for the most part, you have the whole path to really work with outside of that section. Make sure you're using it. If you do, want to cut some of the course off, you can run further straight on some of those wiggles and waggles. And what I mean by that is not totally cutting the course, but something like this out here, right? Instead of running all the way over here, running over there, and running over there, right? You can run while staying on the sidewalk. You can kind of cut that a little bit, and you can stay on that path and just run a little bit less. I mean, we're talking 0.0001 of a mile, right? But that will add up over time, especially if you look at, like something right above it, right? I know this isn't exactly how the path goes, but just for demonstration purposes, right? If we're taking this section and we are cutting that right there and just running right through there, threading the needle, right? And then we are avoiding as much of that zig and zag possible. I realize it's a little bit of a nuanced thing, and if there's a bunch of people around you, you're not going to be able to do that, but you can use the whole sidewalk, to cut some of that course down a little bit and save some of the running that is needed. And because there's so many zigs and zags out there, it will cut down on time and it will have a bigger impact than you think out there. But you're still going to have to run 13 miles. You're still going to have to pace it appropriately. And hopefully you can see out here that our course it's not very, it's not very complicated in terms of elevation out here. We do have a steady incline as we run up to the far side of our course, and then once we hit up there, we're on the northern side of our of our river. We do have a steady downhill. Yeah, there's going to be some slight hills mixed in, right? And then when we get back to this section over here, we do have our turnarounds. That's going to be largely flat. You're going to negate any elevation that you get. And then when you turn around out here, you're going to start steadily building out here. So this section, in my mind, is going to be one of the more complicated or more difficult sections. You're just going to have a steady climb from about mile, let's call it 7.9, all the way up to mile 11.1. So to kind of simplify that, from mile 1.4 up to about 4.6, 4.7 miles, because you're going to do it 2 times out there. So that's going to be kind of my little strategy out there that I would do if I was you. I would take this section, right, and this is going to be where I'm going to use not most of my effort, but I'm going to make this a higher effort section. Coming through this section, it's a lower effort, but hopefully similar speed. You're using that downhill area. You're probably going to have to start running a little bit more at mile 6.7, a little bit higher effort there. And that's going to carry all the way back up here again, and you're going to steadily come off the gas, but that speed should still be up there. You're going to have to work on the downhill sections out here. It's going to be very similar to our bikes out here. Just because it is going downhill doesn't mean you can totally come off the gas. So that steady increase in effort when you're going on the uphills, right? It's not overly aggressive. It's just a slight bump in effort, and you'll really notice it if you're using run power, right? And you might even notice it if you're running with heart rate. It might be slightly higher on that uphill section, and those downhill sections, maybe you're maintaining or dropping a beat or two, and just kind of saving that a little bit in your tank. So that is our Boise 70.3 little course breakdown for everyone. I'm sorry I don't have the aid stations. They're not listed on the site yet. It's not totally updated on their end. So good luck to everyone. I might update this to include aid stations later on when they update it. Make sure if you do want that, you reach out below. If you need any coaching assistance or advice, my contact info is down below. Good luck to everyone racing at this 2025 70.3 Boise